If you're going to search the woods for a body, today is a pretty good day to do it. It's warm, the summer bugs are mostly gone, and it probably won't snow for, I don't know, another month or so. We're parked out by the road, but a couple of trees still hide us a little bit from cars going by. And for our purposes, it's probably better if the locals don't know we're here. We're in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, or the UP, as Michiganders call it. It's more than 10 million acres, and more than 3/4 of it is forest. And believe me, when you're standing in the middle of it, it definitely feels like that. The plan today was to drive deeper into these woods to be less obvious. But a tree fell over the 2 tracks, so we'll have to hoof it in from here.
We got a tip from an informant that, there may be some evidence here related to the case, perhaps, possibly a body.
Welcome to Where Secrets Go to Die, the disappearance of Derrick Henagan. From the Detroit Free Press, I'm John Wisely. I've been reporting in Michigan for 30 years now, and I've never come across a story quite like this one. I've spent years researching it, along with several colleagues here at the Free Press. In the course of this, I've chased down dozens of people and poured through stacks of documents. Just when I think I know everything there is to know about this story, I uncover some new surprise. Some of the things we found out have flat out stunned us. Sure, this story is about a man who disappeared from a wooded wilderness, and that's the common thread that runs through it. But there's a lot more here. You've got this small-town drug culture, especially opioids, that kind of sticks to everything. That fuels a lot of desperation and leads to things like sex work. You've also got this pretty deep suspicion of outsiders. And you've got some very serious suspicions about the cops, too. On a brighter note, you've got a couple of outsiders who are trying to solve this. They've poured a ton of time into this case. They're important, too. They're good at what they do. They're not getting paid. Most of them do it out of a sense of loyalty to Derrick's family. So why are these woods so important? Well, the short answer is, so many of the roads that this story travels lead here. These woods are at the geographic center of the story, but they're also a good metaphor for the whole thing. They're dense and uneven and a bit of a mystery. They're isolated, but they've also been trod before. If all that sounds confusing, sit tight. We'll explain. For now, come along with us as we tag along on a body hunt.
What we're packing up is we've got a metal detector, we've got a sifting grate. It's about a 1/2-inch screen on it for sifting soil to see if we can look for some trace evidence. And we're going to be taking a shovel back with us. If there's a body there, fine. If there's not a body there, but there may have been and it was moved, there could be some forensic evidence left. So that's what we'll do with the sifting and with the metal detecting.
I've logged a couple thousand miles in the car, turning this story over in my mind as I drove. Today, my colleague Tad Davis and I are going to log another mile, this time on foot, in the woods, with 2 men who are searching for Derrick. If you think of Michigan, you probably think of the mitten on the map. Technically, that's the Lower Peninsula. We're in the Upper Peninsula. It's that strip of land above the mitten that separates it from Lake Superior, the largest of the Great Lakes. If you use the palm of your right hand as a map of the Lower Peninsula, trace your ring finger up to the tip. That puts you in the northern waters of Lake Michigan. Keep going north across the water, now you're in the UP. About 20 miles north of that is where you'll find us today.
All right, time to shoulder the rock. We double and triple check everything on a case like this, where it's unsolved, to make sure we don't miss anything.
Meet Mike Niger. His formal title is lead investigator at Michigan Backcountry Search and Rescue, but we call him the Body Hunter because that's pretty much what he does. He hunts for people missing in the woods. Imagine a hiker who gets lost, a hunter who suffers a heart attack, a despondent soul who seeks out a peaceful place to end his own life.
Yeah, but I want to stay away from the road. Get up top and then we'll go around, okay?
But Mike also searches the woods for people who weren't so much lost there as left there. Murder victims. Bodies dumped in the middle of nowhere. Their killers figured they'd never be found. And if they were, the most likely finders would be bears or other scavengers who roam these woods. If Derrick is here, it's probably because someone dumped him here. He's been missing for more than 15 years. The Michigan State Police have investigated his case, but a lot of people kinda question their commitment to solving it. Those suspicions center on one state trooper in particular. What we've uncovered will raise eyebrows, not only about his connections to the people in this case, but also what his cop buddies may have known, or at least suspected. A couple people are hot to solve this case, including Mike Niger. He's in the woods today with Bert Crawford, a dog handler. That panting you hear in the background is Jess. She's a dog trained in human remains detection, HRD for short.
Where we are here, it's a mixed forest right here. We have a lot of pines, looks like a lot of white pine, and then we have a lot of hardwoods, depending on where we are, but the foliage is out, so while we're standing on a little overgrown two-track here, which is now just an ATV trail, when you get back into the woods, you're lucky if you can see 10 or 20 feet. That's why a good search dog is just extremely helpful, because of the nose.
You can probably tell by the sound of her bell that she's excited. She's trained to bark only when she finds what she considers to be the smell of human remains. In her world, a bark is a big deal. Jess didn't do that the last time we were here, but we're hoping Jess might lead us to something worthy of a closer look.
Jess has changed. She's not like tugging. She's sitting. She's pulling a little now because Bert's here, but normally she'd be wound around me 3 times.
Mike's about 6'2" and lanky. He's got a bushy gray beard that's squared off under his chin. He slips a round-brimmed hat on his balding head to shield it from the sun. When you shake his hand for the first time, you can't help but notice the coarseness of his palm and the power of his grip.
Actually, most of what we do is search and recovery work, not search and rescue, because we ended up specializing in cold case work. And, I spent 26 years with the state police working major crimes and stuff as a detective sergeant in the crime lab. And I'm also been a wilderness guide for 35 years. There's lots of detectives out there that work on cases, but it's more difficult, more challenging for them to work on ones in real remote wilderness. And then you have a lot of wilderness guides and whatnot and survival types, but they don't have the investigative background.
Mike is 70 years old, but you'd never guess it by looking at him. You should see him machete his way through thick woods with what looks like 60 pounds of gear on his back. He works out all the time to keep himself in shape for this kind of thing. If he were a TV show, he'd be kind of a combination of Man vs. Wild and Bones.
There's a slice of cases that really don't get addressed. And so I mostly work for families, helping them, basically a private investigator, but I work for free. So, I characterize it as being an independent investigator.
Mike likes his work. In his backpack, he carries essentials like food, water, extra clothes. He also carries a military-style handheld GPS unit and waterproof graph paper. He uses that when he maps his search areas. He'll check off boxes on the graph once an area has been covered.
You can get up right through here.
Okay. Mike works cases that are years old. Sometimes they're decades old. These cases are cold, dead ends. A lot of times, there's very little left in the woods. He's looking for basically any kind of evidence. Sometimes it's there for people who know how and where to search for it. Spend 5 minutes in the woods with Mike, and you'll be convinced he's one of those people. And Mike has had his successes, including one case where he was helicoptered up near the Arctic to find a body. That recovery meant a lot to the victim's family. On this search, he moves through the forest like it's one giant crime scene. Every placement of his boots seems calculated to avoid stepping on a clue. He's ducking under branches easily, despite the backpack that stretches up past his ears. His eyes dart back and forth across the brush, noting the way the branches sway in the wind. Then his focus narrows when he spots an animal track, a piece of feces, anything that might yield a clue.
This looks like the deer bone right here, the joint. That's classic. Yeah, see this one here has been there a while. Look at right back there. You can see how the moss has grown up over it.
Right.
See how hidden it is?
Right. Mike is chatting with me as we walk, but at the same time, he seems to have a second channel in his mind. That channel is tuned to Jess and the sounds of her movements 100 yards away. It's kind of like how cops can listen to the police scanner in the background, even as they're talking to you. From body hunting to nature trekking, Mike's work combines his passions. And like we said, the case that brings him into these woods on this day is the disappearance of Derrick Henagan. Derrick was 35 when he went missing in early August 2008. We'll tell you lots more about Derrick as we go, but for now, you should know a couple things. First, Derrick wasn't from here, as the locals might say. He grew up downstate, but he came up to the UP. Derrick was selling used cars through a traveling auto auction. He hit it off with a local woman, Diana Maddox, and they moved in together. You should also know that Derrick was no saint. He got popped for selling weed. He got into a bar fight once and was charged with assault. He also struggled with addiction, mostly pills. But Derrick was also a guy who quietly helped neighbors in need. He checked in on his son at bedtime each night. Folks who knew him will tell you flat out, he didn't deserve what happened to him. Now Diana, she often goes by Di, she's a story in her own right, and you'll get to know her as well. For now, you should know, she is from here. Her family has lived here for generations. She also has a criminal record, mostly drugs, and she's the one who reported Derrick missing. She told police she didn't know where Derrick was. The last time she spoke to him, she said he sounded suicidal and depressed. She was worried that he may try to kill himself. She told the cops Derrick was last seen by a neighbor down the road, but her explanation of Derrick's disappearance would evolve over time. We'll be back after the break. And we're back. As I mentioned, Derrick was reported missing in August 2008. That neighbor down the road, he told police Derrick walked into the woods. Maybe that is what happened. Maybe Derrick walked into the woods and got lost, or suffered a heart attack, or maybe an overdose. But I gotta say, there's a lot here that looks suspicious. The cops have explored different theories and eyed different suspects at various points. Over the years, there's been a lot of talk about what might have happened. Some of that is chatter online, where more than 3,000 people follow a Facebook page about this case. But much of it was locals talking in the bars around town. Now, maybe it's just the whiskey talking, I don't know. But it's hard to believe that there hasn't been more made out of this case. As I was saying, I'm from Detroit, which gets a couple hundred murders a year. A lot of them do go unsolved. But murder up here is rare, and people here all know one another. I've felt it myself. When you sit down in a restaurant up here, you can feel the glances and the stares. The locals can tell immediately, you're not from here. Now, this place has all the good and bad you'd find in any small town, but some of the bad might surprise you. In one 8-month period in the middle of this case, a startling string of things happened. That state trooper we mentioned, he was accused of asking his daughter to shoot someone and make it look like an accident. In a neighboring town, the state police raided a low-rent motel on the highway to bust up a drug-fueled sex work ring. One of the local women who got caught up in that ring, she was murdered 2 months later, along with her sister and a boyfriend.
Hello, everyone. The Manistee man involved in a triple homicide in Schoolcraft County will serve a minimum of 40 months behind bar.
Their bodies were found inside an SUV, torched in the woods. Look, all of these people, the trooper, the sex workers, the drug dealers involved in the murders, even Derrick and Diana, they can all be connected in one way or another to a small-town drug culture that has never really been stopped. That kind of Wild West atmosphere is one reason Mike Niger keeps working this case.
We're ready to come out here and work like we are today and see if we can learn anything more and, get some answers for, in this case, for Derrick's mother, Betty. We're still working on her behalf to see if we can get some answers, and that's kind of our goal is to find him and bring him home, reunite him. And so that's the type of work I do for families, and they appreciate it. And I get a lot from that appreciation, and I love being in the outdoors.
And there's no shortage of outdoors up here. Nearby, Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore draws more than 1 million visitors per year. Tequamanon Falls is a state park that's postcard pretty. The remote forests are so far removed from city lights that they bring in almost total darkness, which makes for exceptional stargazing. If you're lucky, you may catch the northern lights. The UP is a lot like Appalachia, with colder weather and lots more snow. Parts of the UP average more than 10 feet of snow a year. That's like getting an inch of snow on Thanksgiving and another inch every day till St. Paddy's Day. Of course, it doesn't come down that evenly, but you get the idea.
Hey, Bert, let's go this way, okay? Hey, Bert.
For today's search, we're about a dozen miles southwest of Newberry, a town that claims to be the moose capital of Michigan. They've even got a store downtown that logs moose sightings with pushpins on a map. And leading today's search...
She's a 4-year-old field-bred Springer Spaniel, and it just came from Ireland.
That's Bert Crawford, Jess's handler. He's worked with Mike Niger for almost 10 years. He used to work trail dogs, bloodhounds specifically, but lately he's been working with Jess on these kinds of searches.
This is within the realm of dragging somebody in here. We'll swing the dog through here and see if she can hit on anything at all.
Bert is 85. He's been running dogs for about 50 years. For today's search, he's wearing a blue hoodie, green fatigues, and a black ball cap with an American flag on it. It's a take on the Blue Lives Matter logo in support of police. Instead of a bright blue stripe beneath the stars, Bert's hat has a red stripe there with paw prints on it. He's carrying a small green game bag where he keeps treats for Jess. He's got a jug of water and a bowl she drinks it from.
Thirsty.
Yeah.
He's also got some snacks and Jess's favorite toy, a tennis ball. That's her reward for finding things. Jess stands about knee-high. She has a chocolate-colored head on a mostly white body. She's easily excited, and she seems to pant even when she's standing still. When they search together, Bert becomes the center of her search pattern. She runs in these loops, maybe 10, 20 yards wide. Best way I can describe it is they look like a clover. He's the stalk. She runs away from him in loops that look like a clover leaf. Every loop starts and finishes near him. She does this to his left, and to his right, and out in front of him. As he walks through the woods, the whole search field moves forward with him, looking for the smallest of clues.
And we're looking for anywhere from a tooth to a 1-inch bone.
Bert has a lot of experience with dogs, but Jess, she's different.
Had coonhounds for a lot of years, had a couple bear hounds, a couple foxhounds, had a rabbit dog. And then we've always had a house dog, but they've all been big. And this is the first little dog we've had. But there's too many unfinished cases that haven't been closed. So I figured I still got a few good years, so I would get into the HRD.
They're sometimes called cadaver dogs. You see them used after earthquakes, looking for corpses in the rubble. They're trained to ignore the scent of live humans and sniff out the dead ones. Turns out, decomposing human flesh gives off a signature smell. Even from a makeshift grave, it can be enough scent to tickle the dog's nose. Murderers typically don't bury their victims with much care, which makes it easier for an HRD dog like Jess.
And she chews a ton of grass. She's grabbing a little bit of moisture out of it.
Bert says it's sometimes easier to find a corpse in the woods. As a body decomposes, its scent gets into the ground. Tree roots pick it up from there and transport it to the branches. The leaves dangle it in the air where Jess can smell it. It's worth noting, Bert ended up training Jess himself.
I'm pretty happy with what she's at right now.
The property we're searching is about 30 acres. It's owned by the local road commission. They used it to mine gravel for roads, though from the looks of it, they haven't been in here in a while. If you plotted it on a map and drew a circle around it, say 3 miles in diameter, near the center of the circle, you'd have an intersection of 2-lane roads with a little market at the corner. You'd also have a dozen or so homes, unevenly spaced. The rest of it would be vacant fields, a lot of woods, and a couple lakes. This piece is a bit hilly and mostly wooded, except for the areas that were mined. Those spots look more like sand craters. There are trails through here. The narrow ones were made by animals. The wide ones were made by people on ATVs and snowmobiles. Mike and Bert have searched here before, and Jess was curious about one area. She didn't indicate human remains, but she was curious enough to make them want to come back.
When do you want to start? You want to go back to that big tree before you start working?
Let's take care of that.
All right.
And that way she can run off all that exercise.
Sure. Okay.
Once we get out there.
So we're going to go back to a big tree now. We're in an area where Bert and I were before and worked Jess. His HRD K9, and we're going to recheck a couple areas. Looks like we got some fresh ATV sign in here a while ago. Probably deer hunters or something, or just people riding around. This little 2-track goes right back to where we're going. Right along the top of the gravel pit.
So we work our way through the woods. Jess is running her loops. The bell on her collar helps us keep track of her.
Yes. Second, come over.
Mike and I are on the south rim of the crater looking north, and I spot something down in the sand. The tape gets really windy, so let me walk you through it. I see something blue about halfway across the crater. It's hard to tell exactly what it is, but it feels like something that needs a closer look.
Wander down there at some point.
I'm just curious, yeah.
Oh, it's a good idea.
To work our way down into the crater, we walk around to the east end. The slope there is a little less severe.
Got this?
I think so.
Yeah, just trip it.
So we make our way in and walk across the sand to see what this thing is. I don't mind telling you, my heart rate is up. Not just from climbing down into the crater, also because plastic peeking out of the sand is an important clue in this search. I'm thinking, what if we just found something?
Oh yeah, looks like maybe crust stone or something.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody might have used it for target practice.
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah,
Oh, look at the bullet holes, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody sighted in their guns here and
Exactly.
It looks like this blue jug, 3 gallons or so, the kind that might have held antifreeze for your car. It's riddled with bullet holes of a couple different sizes.
Lots of bullet holes, smaller caliber.
It was definitely used for target practice at some point. It's interesting, but with a lot of deer hunters around here, it kind of seems like a dead end. We leave it where we found it and head up to the rim of the crater towards Jess Bert, and Tad. Now Jess, she's definitely excited about something.
Yeah, you're here because of your expertise in nose work, so.
she likes this area.
Yeah.
So we make our way back down into the crater to see what's tickling her
This
nose.
is right in the area where the blue specimen is working on it right now. Just touched it, rolled it over.
Jess and Bert start working, and all of a sudden Jess seems to make a beeline to the blue container. She looks at it, smells it, touches it, flips it over, and then...
Bingo. Right there, right where the blue container was.
What does it mean when she's barking like that?
She's alerting to the scent of a cadaver on that looks like a water jug of some nature.
Coming this season on Where Secrets Go to Die.
Well, Derrick went missing August 4, 2008 in Newberry. He went missing in the woods. And nobody has heard from Derrick since.
I saw him and he was glaring at me across the embankment. It was just like, it was a cold look, like nobody was there. Like it wasn't my dad. He was a different person.
He was worried about what might happen to him. So I figured that sometime or another somebody must have threatened him.
This podcast is a production of the Detroit Free Press. It was investigated, written, and hosted by me, John Wisely. Our executive director is Anjanette Delgado. Our executive producer is Darcy Moran. Kathy Kalashevsky is our story editor, and Jim Schaefer is our managing editor. Nicole Avery Nichols is editor of the Detroit Free Press. Sound design and mix by Garrett Tiedemann. Original theme music by Camilla Cantu and Brian Castillo. Thanks to associate audio producer Robin Chan and development and contributing producer Tad Davis. And a special thanks to former Free Press photojournalist Kathleen Galligan, whose initial reporting was instrumental to this story. Outside audio in this episode was provided by WLUC TV6. For more on this story, including photos, videos, and source documents, see our Where Secrets Go to Die show notes. If you have a tip for me, you can send it in an encrypted email to wiselyj@proton.me. To support investigative journalism like this, become a Detroit Free Press subscriber. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast. That's a huge help to us. See you next time.